Shall we have a quick anatomy refresher?
I would love that, Amanda.
I don't like to teach anybody to suck eggs, but I think many people haven't ever seen a model. You get those booklets when you go home from hospital, and because it's a 2D drawing, it can make the pelvic floor look terribly small. It makes it look like a strip, like a panty liner.
Yeah.
But the pelvic floor is much bigger than most people think. So your pelvis is a ring of bones. And when you're not pregnant, before you've had your first baby, it's almost like a polo mint. You wouldn't believe it was 3 bones. But once you've had your first baby, there's definitely a little bit more awareness. There's a movement in the sacroiliac joints and at the symphysis pubis bone at the front. But if we look through, there has to be this amazing hole through the whole system to get a baby's head out. But also, aside from that, to eat and poo and have sex.
Yeah.
And men have the hole, same as women. But we have to think, what's going to fill in this hole once you've had your baby? If all we had under here afterwards was skin, we would definitely have a big sack of things swinging around our knees by lunchtime. It would never be enough. So in there, we've got to have these, a great big fat layer of muscles. And we say that the muscles are the same size as 2 hands put together, bowl-shaped. And it's that bowl of muscles that sits in the pelvis and literally makes the floor. So think of a box with the walls made of bone, but the floor is made of muscle. It's the pelvic floor. And those are the deepest layer of muscles. If I tip this up, what you usually see when you look up from the outside is the surface layer or 2 layers of muscles. And most women haven't had a good peer, but if you do, you'll be aware that you've got the back passage, the anal sphincter, the opening of the vagina, and the little bladder tube, and then the clitoris at the top. And you can't normally see all this pink stuff because it's covered by skin and hair. Now, before you have your first baby, the gap between the back passage and the vagina opening is about 2 fingers gap. But after your first vaginal delivery, the opening of the vagina, the introitus, comes down much lower. And most people will find that they've only got a 1 finger gap between the back passage and the vagina opening. And that's perfectly normal, but nobody ever tells you that's going to happen. So it's not damaged, but I think of it as almost unzipped the vagina opening a bit further than you realized it could go. And this little bit here is called the perineal body. And it's like the anchor point for all these muscles coming in from lots of different directions. So it's really important, thick bit, not that sensitive, but the most likely place to have a tear or a cut. And if they do a cut, they'll deliberately going to take the cut off to one side. But if you tear, we tend to tear in the corners of things. Like if you're going to tear and you're going to split your lip, it's going to be in the corner. And if I take this layer away, you'll see where my model over the years has continuously stretched right in the corner there. And if the plastic did that, you can see why on a real body it would do that.
Yeah, I certainly can.
Yeah. Now, at the point of delivery, the baby's head is going to come through that rather small hole there. And all these muscles are going to pull right back to the pelvic rim. But as they pull back, the hormones will let them stretch to this enormous distance that they've never gone before. But you can see why it's so common to get a graze or a split. It won't stretch very far, but just enough to help the baby's head out. And then your midwife or the doctors will have had a really good look afterwards to make sure they've spotted anywhere that's torn that needs a stitch to approximate the edges and help it heal better. Now, the reason we bleed so much when we damage anything down here is because it has an amazing blood supply. But that same amazing blood supply means it will heal really well and fast, left to its own devices. But we want to help it along.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I think that was incredibly helpful for me. Some of this stuff, all of this stuff is stuff that I know already, but I think it's incredibly helpful for me and hopefully for you to be able to see it in a model, which is, kind of true to life, because obviously we can't kind of peer inside our own bodies. So actually having it there to have a look at in front of us really helps me and hopefully you to understand some of what our body has been through and why that might really have an impact on us physically, and particularly with regard to sex and penetrative sex after birth.